Hey, Educator Barnes here. Citizen Ed, which is the umbrella which Indie Ed is under, we have an ongoing series called Black with Kids. This series highlights some of the struggles that Black parents face just trying to parent their child. Today I want to talk about when you are a Black parent and your child's teacher is afraid of you. So my kids have been in school for a little bit of time. They attended pre-K 3, pre-K 4, kindergarten, and first grade. This year, they're about a week or so into the school year of second grade. And you would think in this short little period of time, I would have already had the situation where one of my child's teacher was afraid of me, but unfortunately, that was the case. So let me kind of fill you in on what the situation was. School year had been going great. I do what I typically do. I drop in at some point in the school year. It's important to me to see what the teacher is doing. You know, even though I heard great things about this teacher, that really doesn't matter to me because I've had the experience with the teacher. I've been told the teacher is great, but that relationship with my child isn't so great. So I just want to see what was going on. Went in, see the teacher teach. I thought the teacher was awesome when it came to delivering content. It seemed like the teacher was getting easily annoyed with little things that kids were doing that I didn't think was necessary, but I thought the content was good. But then these emails started coming, like almost daily, about things that my child was doing. Your child is standing up at the desk. So I explained to the teacher, I said, look, both of my sons have a desk. One of my sons, he does not do his work at the desk. He'll do his work on the floor. He'll do his work standing. What is more important to you? The fact that my child completes his work or the fact that he is sitting in the chair while he completes his work? And so, okay, Mrs. Barnes, that's fine. And we were corresponding through email. And so I'm the one that sends all the emails. And there's a reason for this. My husband is the database administrator for the state of Indiana, and he gets tons of emails. So we decided that when it came to school emails, it would be best for me to respond to them because I don't get as many emails as he receives. But anytime I send the email to the school, I always call my husband and we draft the email together. So even though it's coming from my account, it is a joint statement from both of us. But the teacher didn't perceive it that way. And so we would get these other emails. Well, he balled up his paper during writing time. He was sighing during class. And then we had a situation where he kept moving away from this little boy on the carpet. And so she kept telling me about how this was making the class difficult because my child wouldn't sit by this other child. And I said, did you ask him what was going on? She said he wouldn't say anything. So I talked to my son and said, what is going on? And my son said, I just don't want to sit by this kid. And the kid was a little white boy. And the teacher goes on to explain to us on the phone and via email how great this child was, how this kid was a model student. And so I said to my son, I said, what is it? He says, Mom, I just really don't want to sit by this kid. And so I simply told the teacher, I said, look, I said, you have two choices. You can keep trying to force my child to sit by this other child, or you can let him move somewhere else. And so, you know, there's these little things that were happening, but I wasn't really concerned about that because at the end of the day, this is your classroom. So if you're going to make these big battles and make these big situations and make your life difficult, that's on you because I don't have to deal with it because I'm not there. But when it came to the academics, I was getting a little bit concerned. I was a literacy coach for the last 3 school years, and I felt that my child should have been in a different reading group. But I didn't come out and say that. I just said, hey, you know, where are you doing the next benchmark test? And that's when I was informed, since he was past grade level at the beginning of the year, they weren't going to do the middle of the year assessment. The school had decided they were only going to do the beginning of the year and the end of the year for kids that were on track. So I said, hey, can you go ahead and do a benchmark test at the middle of the year? Sure. Well, life got busy and I never circled back to see what was going on with it. And so she forgets, according to her. And I said, hey, what happened with this test? And then she's like, well, Mrs. Barnes, it's towards the end of the year, so we'll just wait till then. I said, well, I asked you, I made a request and you ignored it. I said, you know, let's just have a meeting. And then it became this situation. Every time I suggested a time, she was unavailable. And then these other emails kept coming every day about your son was sighing. He balled up his paper. He's standing up. He didn't want to sit by this child. And so I was starting to draft this email to the teacher, just explain like, I appreciate that you're giving me this bigger context of how there's so many things happening in the class and that if my child was just, you know, be more compliant, things would be easier for you. And my husband said, no. He said, we're not doing this. You're not going to explain anything. You're going to get to the point. And he said, this is what we're going to say. The only child that we want to hear about is our child. We don't want to hear about all the other children you have to manage. That is part of your job. We don't need to hear about it. And from that moment on, I could tell that the tone had changed because then all of a sudden the emails are between us and the principal, which I didn't care about. CC whoever you want on the email, whatever. And so finally, she sends the time, and of course, it's during my workday. And like I told my husband, I said, I will take unpaid time to come in to see about my child. So we come in to meet, and my husband and I were having this conversation. I said, you feel like betting points? And that's something my husband and I do. We bet these imaginary points about stuff, just kind of betting, but we don't keep track. And I said, you know what? I don't want to waste time on this. I said, I bet you that we're going to show up and the principal's going to be at this meeting. Now, the teacher never said the principal is going to be there, but lo and behold, we start walking to the classroom, and the office like, oh, the meeting's going to be in this in the principal's office. And I just looked at my husband, and he said, yeah, you were right. And so we get into this situation where, the teacher was just afraid to, at this point, even correspond with me without including the principal, even talking to me without the principal. I mean, I'm a little bit over 5 feet, 120 pounds. I'm a petite lady. And all I was asking you to do was to give this assessment to my child because I knew that he read higher. So what surprise, she pulls out this data and was like, oh, Mr. and Mrs. Barnes, we're looking at NWEA and your child has high growth and he's in the high percentile. He has the 89th percentile and, his reading level has grown so much. And I'm just sitting there because I'm a literacy coach. I'm like, yeah, that's what I've been trying to tell you. That is my job. And so when you're a parent and you have this gut feeling, but see, I have more than a gut feeling because this is what I was doing. Like when I tell you as a literacy coach, I'm not telling you just as a mom, I'm telling you as a literacy coach that my child can read higher than you have assessed them at. And you're trying to make me feel like I don't know what I was doing. And she even had me do a reading test at home and then explain to me how to do it as if I didn't know how to. I've given various literacy assessments and I've taught how to give some literacy assessments during a college course I had taught for the last 5 years. And so I'm like, which that's fine, go ahead and explain. And so these are the type of situations and barriers that parents run into. And if I wasn't an educator, if I hadn't been a literacy coach and this wasn't my specialty, I may have even ignored my gut feeling and said, well, maybe the teacher is right. Maybe I'm overreacting. And so the fact that we showed up to this meeting and the principal is sitting here, which I'm cool with the principal, that didn't bother me at all. I'm like, that just changed my whole perspective of you. I felt that I feel like you can teach content well, but you don't know how to interact with parents of color. And what was even more interesting, I was sharing this conversation with some other people, and someone says to me, well, some people have been saying that she's a little bit racist. And I said, how is somebody a little bit racist? You're either racist or you're not. And I actually shared this story when I was at NABJ, the National Association for Black Journalists, and I was in the middle of sharing a story, and Roland Martin, who was sitting in the front, he says, was the teacher white? And I just like kind of froze for a moment, kind of like, wait a minute, Roland Martin is talking to me. And I was like, yes. And he's like, say that. He says, that's an important note to your story. And so it was a white teacher, and being a Black parent and being made to feel like I'm going to do something to you, like I'm going to snatch off my earrings and start fighting you or something. I just don't understand it. And so my whole perspective of this teacher changed. And so when you're interacting with parents of color and you make them feel that you're constantly unavailable anytime they ask to meet, you're CCing and including all these people on emails. And then when they do show up, you have all this information and you kind of just are just off-putting, like you're just trying to give the most vague answer as possible. And then when I left that meeting and my husband like, well, you were right. He was reading higher than, she originally was trying to suggest. And so, but at that point, it was the end of the school year. It was like a week before the school year was over. So of course he wasn't going to get moved to a different group. And so I fought like pretty much half a semester to prove my point, just for my point to be proven at the end. And now nothing happens. And so these are the type of situations, these are the type of microaggressions that parents of color deal with teachers, who don't look like their children sometimes. And I'm not saying all white teachers are like this, but every time you have this experience with a white teacher, it puts you more on guard for the next white teacher. And so right now in second grade, I'm very happy with my children's teacher. This year is the first year we put them in the same class, so that's going to be interesting. But in the back of my mind, I just had this apprehension because of previous experience, like what is going to happen? What if there is a situation and I have to talk to you? Will you talk to me? Will I find the principal there? Will people start being included when you start kind of being like, I'm not available? You know, those are the type of situations that we really just want to avoid. And so that's my bit for this time. Talk to you guys later.